Here's an old story that I heard from a friend of mine here a while back, a good buddy named Herman. We're talking about Hank stories, and he told me one that, Lord, it gave me chills. Said his granddaddy was a logger back in the mountains, back when they used to use a two-man saw, or what they call an old crosscut saw, a hand saw. And they used to use mules to snake them out. Said the boss man, you know, got to cut on some land that was just prime for cutting. Now, the owner did tell him, however, said that there was an old man that lived in an old house way back in there in the mountain stuff where, they's going to be cutting, and they more than likely have to tell him to leave. I said that he'd run him off several times and told him the land weren't his no more and everything, but said the poor fella always managed to come back. Always just showed back up. So he told him, said, I guess just ignore him if he won't leave and just, get the timber. Well, said they took out, heading up there one morning. The owner and a few of the other fellas gathered up, and the owner told them to stay put on a ridge top and start falling trees. Said him and a few other fellas were going to go down there and talk to that old man and let him know what was going on. I said he kind of felt sorry for the old man, figuring that the land once belonged to him or his family or something like that. And maybe he was just, at the age where he didn't truly understand it weren't his no more. So just kind of felt sorry for him and wanted to just go and talk to him about it. Now, Herman said the owner and a few other good-sized fellas went down there. Said they could see the chimney smoke in the distance, so they knowed it was pretty close. Now, Herman's pa and the rest of them, they started to work. Well, a bit later, they come back. Unfortunately, the poor old feller had passed on just a short time ago, because they know they hadn't been too awful long because they was far going. But sadly, he was gone. They sent a man to tell folks down in town about it, see if they could get hold of some of his next of kin or who was related to him and whatnot. But, sad as it was, they still had to work. Herman said his pa, the minute they started sawing and chopping, said an eerie breeze was coming up and over the ridge. Said the mules was balking up, trying to run off of everything. Said them woods got almost just as dark as if a bad storm was brewing up. Said all of a sudden, every team of the mules they had broke out of running. Said they hollered, everything, said, but they weren't stopping. Said a lot of the loggers took out after them, trying to stop them, run them down. But said as soon as they took off, they stopped dead in their tracks. Set up on a big old oak tree stump with that old man. Said, mind you, he was old, but even old as he was a very, very large man, about 6'4", 250. Long white hair and a beard. Said he stood there, but you couldn't see his legs. Said he pointed at all them men and said, you'll not touch nary a tree nor sapling on these mountains. And when he said that, said his mouth never moved. They heard his voice, but his mouth never moved. Said they skinned out of there, running over one another and everything. Said the owner told the landowner, said, good luck to you. Said, because they never did go back.
So back when I was about 25 years old, I worked for a landscaping company in Ringgold, Georgia. There was one very old house that we were always getting called to from the owner. He didn't live there, but wanted the yard kept up extremely nice because he was the landlord. Trees, flowers, hedges, the whole 9 yards. Every time we went there, it gave us the creeps. Not to mention, there was this extremely hateful old lady there. She never talked to any of us and would stare at us through the windows with a mean look on her face. We asked the owner about her, and he said to leave her alone. It's just Mother. There's no harm to her. She's just picky, he would explain. We would often make jokes about how she was probably so cranky from living in an old, creepy house like that. Sometimes we would even wave at her, and she would just stare with this blank, crabby look on her face. One day I was off work because I was sick, and when I returned to work, the new fella on the team was in the office talking to the boss and was almost in tears. The boss sent him home for the day, and after he left, I asked Tony, the boss, what's the new guy's deal? He answers, he went out to the Holcomb place to hedge trim. The old lady watched him, and he went up to talk to her. And once he got into the room with her, she disappeared in front of his very eyes. They called the owner and explained what happened. He replied, yes, that's Mother. I said to stay away from her because she's dead. She died 10 years prior out in the yard planting flowers. None of us ever went back. I hope you enjoyed that story. It's the only one I have. Keep up the amazing work, my friend.
Back in the 1970s, there was a young woman who got in a car crash, and it ended up taking her life. And her parents was very sad, as any parent would be. And they identified her and everything like that. And they had her funeral and buried her. It was about 6 months later, and said a man came, knocked on the door, saying they had their daughter in the car outside and needed a ride back home, and that, they thought it was some kind of sick joke. Said they went outside to look in the car and nothing. Said they told him to get lost, thinking it was just some kind of sick joke. Well, there was a man said that he was out driving one night. Said he stopped at a gas station to fill up the truck. And said he was asking the guy at the gas station how far it was to get where he was going. And if he'd show him, the road he was going to be going down. Well, the old man stopped him before he could finish what he was going to be saying. He said, wow, I wouldn't go that way if I was you. This is about 2 years after that happened. Well, he asked him why. And he said about 2 years back, a woman had been killed on that road. So he said, oh, I don't believe in all that stuff. Well, the old man said, well, I can't stop you. And showed him the way. But said, whatever you do, don't stop to pick nobody up on that road. He paid and left, put gas in the truck, and off down the road he went. Said he drove for about 20, 30 miles. Said he was coming around a curve in the road. Said he seen a woman standing in the road flagging him down. Well, he stopped and asked her, what she needed. She said her car broke down and asked him if he would give her a ride to her parents' house. Said it was about 10 miles up the road. He was going that way anyway, so he said, yeah, sure, come on, I can give you a ride. Well, no, he said, yeah, come on, I can give you a ride. Not seeing a broken down car anywhere, but said he didn't think much of it. At the time, he was just thinking, well, she didn't, say anything out of the way, so he didn't think much about it. He was just thinking about getting her home. Well, he pulled into the driveway of the house. She told him to go knock on the door. He got out of the car and she didn't. He thought it was kind of weird that she didn't get out of the car too, but he went and knocked on the door, and a man answered. Said he told him he had their daughter in the car. Said she broke down. Well, the man stopped him, told him to get out of there, kick rocks. Said they're sick and tired of them sick jokes. He said, what are you talking about, sir? She's in my truck right there, look. So he looked back at his truck, and nothing. So the man slammed the door in his face. Well, that being said, the man went back to his truck. Nobody being in it, kind of freaked out when he got back in his truck and hightailed it out of there. But he went back the other way, and thinking about the situation, he knows he didn't take his eyes off the road but for a split second to look at the man and the door. So, I mean, it weren't time enough for somebody to get out and hide. Well, he drove about 10 miles, and he finally came back to the curve in the middle of the road. And there she was, standing there trying to flag him down again. Said it scared him about half to death, and said he floored it. Said he drove home, driving the whole time thinking about what happened. Well, said he went back to that gas station, and come to find out, the old man that told him about what happened at the road there was the man that originally picked her up 6 months after she died, and told him about what happened at the beginning of the story. After he left the gas station, said he never went back around there again. He said he didn't care if anybody believed him or not. He said he seen what he seen. People may say, whatever they want. But people do say at night you can still see that woman trying to flag people down. Several nights ago, I got up like I often do at 3 a.m. But this time, wasn't because I couldn't sleep. I think I actually could have slept until a bit later that morning. I woke up because I heard whistling. Now, whistling don't creep me out, but whistling at 3 a.m. does. And it wasn't birds or anything like that. This was a melodious whistle. And though somebody, simply whistling a tune. I went ahead and made my coffee and decided to stay up, thinking it was likely a neighbor doing their laundry or whatever. But what freaked me out is when I got into the studio, the whistling began again, and it sounded like it was in the basement just below us. It's very quiet here in the middle of the night, so I was sure somebody in the basement was whistling. I shrugged it off and went on about my day, mentioning it to James, my daughter, my son, and even my mom. We joked around about it being ghostly activity, or me finally losing my mind. The next morning I wake up and come to the studio. I've made my coffee, and I hear the whistling again. Now this is odd. So I said a little prayer and just kind of sat there trying to ignore what I was hearing. Talked to my daughter about it again, and she said it was likely somebody's video game or perhaps somebody just walking around outside doing whatever they're doing at 3 a.m. Well, I have to admit I was a bit freaked out. A friend had commented that they too had heard whistling through the night, but they live in a different part of Roanoke. But it got me kind of curious. Is other people hearing this? So I asked a few neighbors, and James mentioned it, and nobody else had shared my experience. So I did as anybody would in 2022. I went to Google. Well, first I Googled whistling in Roanoke, which I only found a few reports from a couple of weeks ago, and people recording hearing strange whistling around the railroad tracks. And we don't live that close to the railroad, so I dismissed that. I kept searching. I decided to get very specific, and I entered whistling, Grandin Road, Roanoke, Virginia. Jackpot. Chills went up my spine when I opened the article about John Nash, who lived at my address in the 60s. If the name John Nash is familiar, it's because he is a Nobel Prize winner for the game theory and mathematics. He was the subject of the movie starring Russell Crowe, A Beautiful Mind. Apparently, while he lived here in my address, he took to whistling while he walked back and forth to the library and around Grandin and Raleigh and Raleigh Court. Mothers feared for their children and protected them from him, as he looked disheveled and scary. Well, during this time, he was suffering with audio hallucinations due to schizophrenia, in and out of mental institutions. The article stated that he was dubbed the Whistler of Grandin Road. You gotta be kidding me. Granted, I doubt this was connected to my mind morning whistler, however. I hardly believe in coincidences, and I think it's pretty incredible. Additionally, while he lived here, he set a fire that some claim was intentional. When James and I were downstairs in the basement a few months ago, we noticed the flames kiss the beams just under the apartment. Apparently, his mother had lived in our apartment in the mid to late 60s, if they were numbered the same as they were then, and he resided with her there before her death in 69. Ultimately, he would leave Roanoke, and he also overcame his schizophrenia, which is almost unheard of by the power of the mind. It's one of the most bizarre things that's ever happened to me, and it left me quite speechless and a bit freaked out at first. He would ultimately die in a car accident in New Jersey around 2014 or 2015. I'm going to link an article into the comments below. I just thought it was something really cool that happened and wanted to share with you guys. Summertime 2015. I was 15 and doing some campground activities such as karate, cornhole, etc. The place called Wilderness Presidential Resort in Virginia was a nice campground full of trails, lakes, and the pool. Everybody's favorite place. It was dark next to our camper, and the only thing keeping light around was the campfire and the karaoke setup. I want to say it weren't quite midnight yet, but close to it though. I started to casually look into the trees and the gravel road, and then something caught my eye. A little girl. She looked lost, and then she saw me. Her face lit up with joy, or so I thought. We locked eyes, and eventually she started to wander off, and I asked her, "Are you lost? Are you okay?" She stopped and smiled. "I need help. Can you help? Can you come help me? I'm scared." As a kid who always likes to help, especially with children, I joined her immediately. We started to walk together down the gravel road. She went to reach for my hand, so I held it. It felt wet for some reason, but I didn't think too much of it. I was just glad she felt safe with me. So we walked for a little longer, and eventually she burst into excitement. She let go of my hand and started running down the path. "Come on, I want to show you something." She ran faster than me, and I was losing my breath trying to keep up. As I was getting myself together, she was a bit farther away from me. Now, all she did was stand still and started to calmly say, come here, I want to show you something. Come here. When I get myself feeling a little better and follow her from the distance I was at, it started to feel like I was, walking for a while. I turned around for a moment, complete darkness. Could barely see the trees. Couldn't see the campground whatsoever. No lights, no nothing. I turned back around to see her again. Farther this time. She said it again. Come here. I want to show you something. Come here." Knowing that she had said that she needed help, I stuck to my word and continued to follow her. She kept getting further and further away, still saying those same words. Well, I started to get cold, and the smell of nature consumed me as I kept going. The smell was nice, but it kept getting colder. So I call out, "How much further?" She keeps her back turned to me and keeps walking. All of a sudden, I hear heavy footsteps behind me, coming from afar, and it's directly behind me. So I turned around. It was my aunt. She looked all sweaty and out of breath. "Why are you all the way down here? We've been looking everywhere for you for hours." My aunt was furious, but relieved I was found. In my head, I thought, hours? I knew I was walking for a little bit, but only felt like maybe 30 minutes tops. So I tell my aunt a little girl was at the camper. Said she needed help, so I followed her. My aunt widens her eyes and looks at me and says, "Alex, there's a lake at the end of this road." My thoughts start racing, and I look back to see the little girl. There she was, on top of the lake, and the lake, not even 2 foot away from me, standing on top of the water, staring into my soul, just smiling cheek to cheek. Come here. I want to show you something. Come here. But the thing is, I can't swim.
And that's 5 haunting Appalachian ghost stories sent in by you guys, the fans. Wow. You guys have sent some incredible stories in over the years. We've got many good ghost stories that you guys have sent. I couldn't include them all. I don't know how long that would be. It would take forever to make that video. Maybe one day. Like a 9 or 10,000 subscribers celebration story collection or something like that. But what y'all think of these stories? These are some of my favorite ones from over the years. I love them all, but these kind of stood out in my mind when I thought about making something spooky with ghost stories for October. I thought of these. Let's see, we had the Phantom Hitchhiker. That one's always stood out to me. And I guess I had a similar story to that, but you guys know that. I recorded it not too long ago. I guess that's why that one spooks me out. There's the ghost of the old lady looking out the window at that rundown house in Georgia. That's a spooky one, too. Ooh, that's just Mother. She's been dead for 2 years. Oh, my gosh. The Phantom Whistler, an early Spooky Appalachia story, and very, very creepy. The whistling in the middle of the night. You know, I kind of lost it, but I think somebody left a comment or something that they heard something similar on or near that same road in Roanoke, Virginia. The whole thing's pretty spooky if you think about it. And then there is the, it's kind of a recent one, the ghost in the water story. Oh man, that ghost, that little girl trying to lure that little boy into the water. That's downright terrifying. And then last but definitely not least, the spirit of that old man at that logging camp who thought that either he thought he still owned that and then kept, I guess, protecting the land after he passed. Now, I think there was a comment on that video when we originally put it out that somebody thought he could have been a male witch. It's hard to say, but darn, that one was real spooky. Woo! Man, love these stories. Keep sending them in, y'all. You can send them to spookyappalachia@gmail.com. We love them. Everybody loves them. They're great. We hope y'all just keep on sending them forever and ever, and I'll keep putting them out. Hope you enjoyed this collection. Let me know what you think of it or any of these stories in the collection here. And don't forget to share out this video and like it. But if you've made it this far and you're not yet, make sure to subscribe. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything, and it really helps the channel. We're on our way to 9,000 subscribers, and hopefully we hit 10,000 subscribers. That would be amazing. It would be a blessing indeed. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed this. And until next time, be sure to stay spooky.